All right, guys, we'll start this program here very shortly. We have Scott Morris in the house for the Wednesday edition of Real Talk with Keith Smith, presented by Ross Mortgage. Keith and Yona are building their 2023 business plans. So Keith not in studio today as they recharge and put those models together. Today's show, however, is going to be well repped with Scotty Moe, the branch manager of Ross Mortgage, who joins us on Wednesdays for compelling discussion. Scott, before we start the show, how's everything going with you?
Good, man. Just busy, little kids running around, getting ready for Christmas, decorating stuff, preparing for all the family things. Life, brother, life.
I know it well. He has 3 under 6 or 3 under 5?
3 under 5.
3 under 5. 3 children under 5. We have at my house 2 under 5, including a, how old is he? 9-day-old.
Yeah.
Now. It's all kind of a blur. But we're going to have some fun. We will talk closings. We'll answer your questions. We'll talk rates. Anything and everything possible on the Wednesday edition of Real Talk with Keith Smith with Scott Morris in the house today. Judah, you got a 3-shot setup if we need it, right? And the mic ready to rock and roll. I think we're good, man. We can go when you're ready. Good Wednesday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk with Keith Smith. Thank you kindly for joining us. A rainy Wednesday morning in downtown Charlottesville, our audience, every social media channel known to mankind. Today's show is presented by Ross Mortgage and Scott Morris. Ross Mortgage and Scott Morris have been helping people get to the closing table, through the finish line, and into vacation homes of their dreams, and refinancing said properties many times over. Scott Morris and Ross Mortgage. Judah Wickower is our director. Keith Smith and Yona Smith are enjoying a little R&R as they put together their 2023 business models. I believe Keith will be back next week. Judah, is that what memory serves from your calendar?
I could check the email.
Yeah, let us know. That's Judah Wickower, our director. We can go to the studio camera and welcome Scott Morris to the show. My friend, good morning.
Good morning.
How's it going?
Pretty good, dude. Pretty good.
It's nice to see you.
Thank you. Good to be here. Out doing all the year-end stuff, preparing for 2023, that sort of thing.
Did I see a massive turkey at the Ross Mortgage Thanksgiving party?
Yeah. We deep fried. I deep fried one at the office, and then did a ham for the fam the next day, and just doing all the food stuff, man. That's my jam.
Your team members seem quite happy in those Facebook photos.
Yeah, well, they generally are a happy group of human beings.
I've noticed that.
Yeah, so that's that's the goal. Like, keep the people happy.
I'll give some props to team member John Snow, who I believe was at ACAC Route 29, getting after it in the workout room.
Yeah, John does get after it.
John, so if you're watching, we're giving you some props here. All right, why don't we start with the first one here, J-Dubs. The show is yours. Where would you like to begin?
Where would I like to begin? So just in preparing for 2023, I've been doing just a lot of just kind of local research as far as what we're seeing as far as types of loans closed, and I see a ton of conventional product being used, which tells me a couple things. One, if you're a realtor out there and your clients aren't being offered multiple options, are you closing as many deals as you possibly could? Are the people that you're working with exploring every option to get everything done? Are there veterans out there who aren't being educated enough in what their true VA benefits are because they think that a conventional loan is more likely to be accepted? If that's the case, it has to be by the numbers alone that people aren't exploring all their options. Give me a call. Let's see what could be missing there potentially in order to, for one, for you to close more deals, and two, to give your clients the best level of support that they need.
What are the options out there besides conventional?
We live in an area where there's a lot of USDA, which is Rural Development Loan, which is zero down for someone who's not a veteran. Then VA loans. Someone who's taken the time out of their life to commit themselves to the country in order to be provided the opportunity to have a zero down product, to where when we're in this market of using 2-1 buy downs and getting seller concessions, with a VA loan, the amount of concessions aren't unlimited, but they're close to it. You can do things that you could never do in a regular product, from having the seller pay off existing debt that the veteran has, and an FHA loan where you could get 6% to use to pay the closing cost and for the buy down, so that they could go in at a lower rate to help them qualify, and knowing that if there's someone who's going to have it together, they're going to be able to refinance that loan down the road.
Fantastic. That's a good one right there, Jude Wickower. Jude Wickower, our director here. How do you characterize the housing ecosystem right now?
Prime properties getting multiple offers, things that have deferred maintenance or could be overpriced or just aren't or are a little out of the way, are starting to, they're getting some days on market. And we've been talking about that for months now, but now you're really you're starting to see 90 days. You're starting to see things really accrue as far as that goes. Choice properties that are priced right are on and off. And other things, depending on where they are and price, are starting to sit a little bit.
This market heading into 2023, I think everyone's understanding that there's going to be a little bit of quiet period through the holidays. When does it pick up back again? Are we back into the seasonality of real estate?
Traditionally, the week after the holidays is literally where people who have they may have been looking over the holiday season. They're on their phones. They're reaching out to agents. They're starting to get the ball moving and taking action on what they might need to do going into the new year.
We have some questions coming in, which we'll get to here in a matter of moments, including the rates question, which Scott gets quite often. Before we get to the rates question, we've had some questions on the various loan products that are not tied to veterans that you referenced at the beginning of the show. If you could help explain them to viewers and listeners.
So USDA is the most conservative of all the loan products. There's no low credit limit, but in order to get an actual approval, typically a client needs to be 640 or better, maybe have some savings that they're not going to use. Their housing expense alone can't exceed 28% of their total income. So if they make $3,300 a month, then they need to keep a mortgage of a little less than $1,100 a month. Now, it's a tough price point to hit, especially with where rates are, and each county has individual limits. So that's something that if it's that you're interested in, reach out to me or your agent, and let's kind of put together a plan on how that might work. An FHA loan requires a 3.5% down payment. That's your minimum mandatory amount that they're going to put down. But again, it's a product that allows for 6% in seller concessions. So that could pay for your closing cost and a 2-1 buy down to lower the interest rate for the first 2 years.
There you go. That's good right there. That's a fantastic one, succinct. For a second one, Judah Wickower. What's the agents you deal with? Because, one of the things about partnering with you is you help market the properties. Your Ross Mortgage does, you, Scott Morse, do. How have the agents responded in conversations with them? Because you have a lot of face time with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anybody who's got that's one of the things we start reaching out on Thursdays for. Do you have anything new coming on? Is there something existing that you want us to help continue to push? We between 3 private pages, 2 groups, we push out to somewhere between 10 and 20,000 eyeballs that you may not be getting on your own. Something that we diligently work towards is being able to help you market your business and market for your clients. From there, it really just depends on what your needs and wants are. Do you want us to help put together an open house? What is it that you're looking for that you need our help with? We're going to help you get it done.
I like it. I like that one as well. Judah Wickhauer. That's good knowledge.
It's all sizzle reels today, baby.
You're on point. It's on point. That's good right there for a third reel, J-Dubs. Do you see the inventory picking up again? We're constantly talking inventory here. Do you see it picking up post-Christmas and New Year's?
Yeah, I mean, I see things that's, you're going to get, people don't want strangers in their house through the holidays. So the houses that are listed are being so with intent. They want them sold. At the same time, there's people who I'm sure are out there who have seen what's happened in the last year, who may still be grappling with some unrealistic expectations, who put something out there that hasn't sold in 3 months, and there's probably a reason for that, be it condition or price, whatever that may be. Location, less probably location than the other two, because if it's priced right, there's someone out there who still, we have plenty of people who want to get into the right property, but at the same time, with what rates have increased to, have kind of shifted people's price points a little bit.
Ian Thomas leaves this comment. He goes, on the last show, Scott Morris was talking about the next Fed meeting on the 13th and 14th. Does Scott Morris have a take on what the Fed and Powell are going to do on the 13th and 14th when it comes to rates?
I'm with the 50 BIP bandwagon. I think that's where they are. I think that's kind of what everyone is expecting at this point. More interested in seeing what the jobs reports continue to look like and what CPI looks like. Those are the 2 most important things. CPI is backwards looking data based on the increases that they've already had. And again, the Fed moves with a sledgehammer, not a scalpel. So at some point, we're starting to see some shift, I think, in the data. But we're not there yet. And I don't think a soft landing is on the horizon. I think we're going to go through, some months next year. I think the market's starting to price that in. But I mean, from investors on the mortgage-backed security side to big institutional money, everybody's just like, everybody wants good news to happen. So as soon as, we go through days and days of some positive pricing, and then you get a negative jobs report, meaning one where people didn't lose jobs. While employment's still high, it's hard, and wage inflation is continuing to increase, it's hard to see actual inflation being tamed. So when that happens, then the market negatively reacts and will give up a week's worth of gains in 24 hours.
We had a question on Monday that we saved for you in regards to the jumbo market, and if you're seeing softening at that level of purchasing.
Well, what kind of helped that out a little bit is the increase in conforming loan limits. I've certainly seen fewer applications at that price point, but there's, I think what's weird though, depending on the area, so Northern Virginia has still been pretty active, some areas of Richmond and here, but when you go from like just tiptoeing into jumbo, that's where things have slowed down. But when you see like these, multi-million-dollar properties, some of those are still changing hands. So there's people who are with money who are out there making transactions happen. They aren't necessarily borrowing that money to do it.
Those are cash transactions, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're seeing? Yeah. So the follow-up question this person asked on the jumbo threshold, and she said that she noticed the same. What would it take to get that portion or segment of the market back active and with momentum?
lower rates. Like what makes everything smoother? Like cheaper money.
Angela Moberly,
Hey,
watching the program right now in Culpeper,
Inspired Homes.
one of Culpeper's finest.
Absolutely.
Interested to hear about your new construction loan packages, Scott. She's asking that question.
Call me. So 10% down is going to be the minimum down payment amount. 680 credit. We can dive deeper into that in a phone call, but that's the main thing to know as far as when you're shopping it to a client.
With a couple of home builders watching the program now, give us some insight on new construction with what's going on with your business and the conversations you're hearing.
So, again, we're in a time of year where there's a little bit of slowdown there. When I talk to some builder friends, labor is the biggest problem that they're going through at the moment. Like,
Is that the
everyone
issue
else.
you guys have, Angela? Let us know about labor here. Go ahead, Scott.
That and finding lots. Like for the smaller builder, finding lots that are affordable for the client to go in, purchase, and build a home. That's been a bit of a sticking point for a couple clients and a few builders that I know.
Which portion is still the most active of the market? Is
Resales.
Resales?
Yeah.
And is that the entry price points? And if so, why? Just affordability?
Yeah, I mean there's typically more. That's where there's the most of.
Yeah, resales guys certainly have some momentum. The market expanding into territories is a topic that comes up often when Scott's on the show, and I think that's because Scott has such a large territory that he's covering with Ross Mortgage. Are you seeing the business expanding further away from Charlottesville, or is it still pretty populated with the urban ring and tighter?
I think it depends on. I think we're getting back into, well, we've talked about it throughout the entire pandemic and everything, the drive to you qualify kind of situation, and there's certainly still a lot of that going on. Inventories, there's still not a lot of it, so where can people find that they can afford, and they're going to, each individual and family is going to make those decisions based on what's going to put them in the best place. What can they do that's going to make them the most likely to succeed?
Good questions come in from Jonathan Waltz on LinkedIn. Is the attached product moving at all, Scott, from a financing standpoint that you're seeing? Good question.
Like townhomes?
Condos, townhomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Duplexes.
Richmond, Virginia Beach, there's a lot of condos being built.
Locally around here, you seen any of that?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of. I know there's a ton
few
of
and far
apartments,
between.
being built over on the backside of Martha Jefferson, but I can't think of like any big condo projects that I'm sure there may very well be, and I'm just not aware of.
I'm seeing quite a few people in the Culpeper community spotlight here. How about you shine the spotlight on Culpeper and what you're seeing in that county?
Well, we've got some growth. We've got two large, active developments that are going up, several hundred units apiece in attached and single family, detached. It's been active from even like larger parcel resales to Inspired Homes. What they're doing, they've put together over the course of the year some fantastic properties in several different areas, and from what I understand, everybody has a pretty good outlook on 2023, at least from new construction and resale for what that's generating in the area.
What's your 2023 outlook?
I love forecasting wildly into the night. I think we're going to see a first quarter that kind of struggles to take off, but more active than we've seen in the last 30 to 60 days, and then the second half of the year, as we I think we are gonna see. I continue to believe some softening in rates. That's gonna help get things going from probably mid second quarter on.
And how low, potentially?
Potentially, who knows? I say mid fives by August.
Wow. Mid fives by August.
Mid fives by August.
I like that. I like that right there. Angela Moberly says, like, labor, yes, we have a great corporation team or a great core team. Land is definitely a huge issue for us. We're more of a boutique builder versus production and exclusive custom. So they're doing new builds that are custom to people with plans that are coming to them, or they're helping work the plans for them. It seems like they're in very good position right now in Culpeper. Throw that to you.
They are, and they put together a fantastic product.
Something that's unique potentially to Culpeper, right?
Yeah. Well, I think anytime you've got somebody who can hit an attainable price point, who puts together, and what Angela does as far as the design and decoration side of it, it's pretty phenomenal.
I love it. Keep the questions coming in. We'll get to as many of them as possible. Scott, this question, after the Fed does the rate hikes in December, is your anticipation that they will stay steady with lower hikes going to the first quarter, or could we see them eventually stop altogether? And Angela also says, thank you quite a bit, Scott.
You are welcome quite a bit. Yeah, they're going to stop eventually, but I think that they get into, I think we go to March, at least at the moment. There's no, they're not there yet. Larry Summers doesn't believe that we're there yet. He did a pretty good job of calling the inflation to begin with. But we will start seeing impacts to the economy at large at some point from a jobs perspective. The slowing is going to work, and when it works, it's going to look more like a cliff than this gradual decline. And as that happens, that will be the indicators that allow them to stop or pause the increases. And we're going to go some amount of time. Nothing happens as fast as everybody wants it to or thinks it does. When all the money was printed and everybody was screaming inflation, 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 it took almost a year and a half to get here, to almost nearly 2 years. It showed up, and then now we're trying to unwind all that.
Does the lower demand that's happening now have as much of an influence or greater of lowering, say, mortgage rates as what Powell and the Fed are doing with trying to tame inflation? I mean, clearly buyer interest is slowed significantly, almost at a standstill in a lot of markets here. How does the lower demand counteract what Powell and the Fed are doing with taming inflation with your business?
Well, they go hand in hand. One begets the other. Like what the Fed is doing is part of the reason that demand is slowed, and as demand slowed, that's what tells the Fed that, okay, maybe we've gone far enough. But at the same time, we live in a human business. People, we help provide people housing. It's one of the most critical things that exists throughout our lifetimes. So whether it be trying to get someone into a rental who can't qualify and is having trouble qualifying through credit or too many pets or whatever, when you've got agents out there juggling that, to us trying to put qualified people into homes, depending on what's available as far as inventory and where they live and how much they make. Those people are going to continue to have babies and get divorced and die and do all the things that create real estate transactions, and it's our jobs as professionals to facilitate that.
I love it. Keep the stuff coming in here. This is an interesting one. Has demand year over year for Scott in your business, what's it like perspective-wise? Now, he does a fantastic job, guys, and he has a large footprint So I would imagine he's performing at a very, very impressive clip considering these circumstances. But folks are asking year over year, almost like the car does with their report with sales.
We did, or we're going to finish the year just above where we did last year.
Wow.
And
That's impressive. Same with Keith and Yona.
yeah, and
That says a lot.
And I foresee next year, or at least the first quarter of next year, certainly being slower than last year. But I see the year as a whole, I would be willing to wager that we finish at or above where we did this year.
Why do you say that? Just because you got the systems in place to do it?
Yeah.
You foresee taking market share from others.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
What I
Because
think
that's how you would have to do it.
that's how we focus our business. I mean,
Yeah.
we do a very good job at what we do, and that both for the client, and the client being the borrower, and for the realtors who we work with. We want to create an environment where we were talking about somebody who does some renovations and flips prior to the show, and things don't always go well, and it's how that's handled is whether people want to continue to work with you or not in the future. We don't, all business is not sunshine and butterflies. You're going to go through some things, and being able to overcome those obstacles and communicate with your partners and your borrowers and make sure everybody feels whole at the end is what it takes to really make this successful.
Kevin Yancey on the road. We've dubbed him the mayor of Waynesboro. He owes you a bottle of brown juice.
Yeah,
I believe some Crown.
Yeah.
Crown Royal. Kevin Yancey owes you. He says, and good morning, Kevin. We love when you watch and participate. He says, what's Scott's take on the recent report that roughly 22% of folks who purchased during COVID are now upside down on their financing?
It's regional. It's not here. And mostly not in portions of Virginia. But the Sun Belt, where you look at Blackstone and the huge conglomerate of where so much inventory was purchased by corporate investment product, that certainly drove those markets up, and now they're starting to feel some of the crash from that. So it's again, that's very regional.
This particular market the appreciation has slowed, but it's still there. Mm-hmm. That's what you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to see some plateau, but not was it like an Idaho where right outside of in like Salt Lake City and like all those areas where they had like 400% increases, like some just insane amount like stuff. Those areas are seeing dramatic reduction in value because it wasn't real. I mean, here, I still think while it was too much, it wasn't completely insane.
Jeremy Riddick watching the program. He asked this question on LinkedIn. Does Scott expect price appreciation in 2023 for the car footprint?
I think there's people who have forecast that already around 3% for 2023. I would have to stick with what they're saying. I think that if I'm right and rates do start to fall just a little bit, if we fall below 6% into next year, then activity, everybody, will dramatically increase through as that's happening through the spring market going into the fall market, and you're going to see the number of people who qualify, need to buy, are going to outnumber the amount of properties, and in turn, the prices are going to go up. That's just how it's going to. That's how it works.
Peggy asked the question about approvals coming across your desk, which is a leading indicator. How are they looking at Ross Mortgage?
So a couple weeks ago, we went through the kind of like just a very like people who I guess got to the end of the year and like, hey, we want to be real estate investors, and nobody really serious. Now we're starting to see some serious. Hey, I'm moving. This is happening. I'm changing jobs. We're starting to see some very active, qualified buyers who are looking to make decisions.
You're seeing investors pick up?
I'm seeing people who decide that they want to explore that opportunity. And again, it's like anything else, ebbs and flows. I think, it could have just been a number of one-offs, but a large chunk of people who all of a sudden said, hey, maybe they're getting into the year, they're watching TikTok videos, I don't know. And the idea of real estate investing has, can we do this?
I love the influence of TikTok with getting people to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and lock in years, if not decades, of their life. The Chinese government at its finest right there. Jeff Newton watching the program, and Jeff Newton asked the question. Jerry asked Scott, the first-time home buyer, your question where you ask your guests if it's more difficult now versus peak COVID to buy a house. So thank you for reminding me. I'll ask you that question. More difficult now for the first-time home buyer now or peak COVID?
Peak COVID.
Tell us why.
Competition. Now they've got options.
Limited inventory, higher rates.
Limited inventory, higher rates.
Peak COVID was a lot more inventory, but obscene, ridiculous, crazy competition.
Yeah, and
low rates.
Yeah, and having to waive appraisals and do just all these things, inspections, things that you should never be forced to do in order to get into a home when it's one of the largest investment you'll make in your entire life. Whereas now, if we can get you in with some concessions from the seller, find the right property, do all the things, you can be much better, set for success in the long term. With a few small obstacles versus competing against 18 other purchasers and cash and giving up all these things to get into a house.
What's a good credit, nice down payment, 30-year fixed rate looking like these days?
Today, mid sixes.
6.5 to 7 in that range? Still cheap money, guys. Still cheap money. And how about the refinance business? Do you expect an uptick sometime, maybe Q3 of next year when the rates start dropping?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll continue to see, as things stabilize, as we have seen, people who maybe have stayed on top of things but got into, some credit card stuff and want to go in and clean that up. You'll see some cash out stuff while the equities, especially in the area that we're in now, still on the table. There'll be people who go in and get that money for specific needs.
This question on refinancing has come in. Can Scott speak in detail the various kinds of refinancing products?
You could do a renovation loan and refinance your house to get cash out for that. You could there's multiple different options there. You could do a rate and term, which if you were getting divorced and one person needed to keep the house and one person didn't, that would give you a slightly better rate than say paying that other person with a cash out prior to ratifying or finalizing that divorce. If you needed to get some money out to pay some bills, you can do that through a government-backed FHA product, a conventional loan, a VA loan, depending on what you qualify for. There's multiple different options for each scenario.
Did you see the report on NBC 29 about rents dropping? Rents in the area dropping 2%.
I did not. That's interesting.
Over the last 30 days. Curious of what your take on that. How rents dropping could or could not be impacted by price point stabilization on resales?
2% in 30 days, a trend does not make.
Yeah, I agree with that. Year over year, we saw a 2% drop, and
year over year.
Year over year, yeah. So I should have clarified that. It was November, 30-day period this past November versus November of 2021. Rents have gone down 2%. Now, the point that Judah wants me to make here is from March 2020 until now, those same rents have upticked basically 15%.
All right, that's
Yeah.
okay. That seems like a much more honest statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So we can manipulate statistics any way we want.
Yeah.
15% in 2 years, 2% year over year.
yeah. So rents are still up
Expensive.
greater than yeah.
Why do you think the rents didn't drop and not continue to escalate when inventory is so tight on the resale market?
Well, look at all the apartment buildings that have gone up in the last 24 months. Look at the number of rental units has increased exponentially between Hollymead, what's going on behind Pantops. So there's more rental units in the footprint, and there's been more investment purchases for people who are renting to people. I think that certainly plays a part of it.
Yeah, we'd like to see it stabilize. We also realize the value of getting people in homes where they can fix their overhead. I just found it curious. I think it's definitely what you said. There's more rental options out there now, and a lot of entrepreneurs and small builders and developers wanted to try to capture as much of that rental increase as possible. So they started springing up. But over the course of 2 years, a 15% uptick. We'll weave you in on this, Judah. You have some takes on the rental market and how expensive it is that you mentioned on the show a couple days ago. Would love if you passed on to Scott the take you had.
I want to hear it, baby.
Yeah, his is pretty good here. Curious of the 2%, 15% uptick and what you passed on the I Love CVille show about that.
Well, it's a matter of how much people can afford. I'm not really sure where you want me to go with this, but rents have been raised quite a lot in the last few years, and a 2% reduction is not really going to bring a whole lot of people in. People are looking for I see people on Reddit talking about needing roommates, or whether or not it's better to go over the hill, go over the mountains, and find a cheaper place to live.
Yeah. Your take on the other day was a little different. You're talking about how the landlords, as these spaces come up for renewal, whether they're choosing to be aggressive with raising rates. That's kind of where I was going with that.
Right. Well, I think somebody had posted in the comments that that doesn't figure into the overall numbers. So I don't know how accurate my take was, but yeah, my thought was that I think part of what I was talking about with you was that there's not just it's not just a set number. If rents have been raised 15% on average, there are some that probably haven't been raised at all. I had a landlord for a while before I bought my house, who I think only raised my rent 2 or 3 times in 10 or 11 years.
I know people who've got multiple properties to where if they've had a good tenant in the property, they have no incentive to raise that rent to push them out potentially, where they keep it nicer than they've had the property kept in years and years. They want, bro, keep paying what you're paying. Keep it clean, keep your little garden out there. You never call me for anything. Mm-hmm. You fix most of the stuff, whatever's going on, you take ownership of the problem. Now, if you've got somebody who tears your property up and they call because the light bulb goes out and, everything is, and, you've got, rent payment problems, that's where you're going to see rent increase. And please, let's try again and get somebody else in here.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the take I was hoping for. This is where I wanted to go.
Well, I'll get to that, but that's definitely the case. I know my landlord often was, he would say, "Look, I appreciate you getting rent to me on time every month," and when he did raise rent, it was like it'd be like $50 a month, which was definitely Nice. But the point with the low rents was that if you have, if you've got 15% a 15% raise on average, then what is the counter to those low rents? Is it landlords, raising their rent 20%? And if those landlords that do like their tenants and are keeping them in and keeping their rent prices low, is it mostly the new rentals or the rentals that are turning over, looking for new tenants? Are those most of the ones that we're actually seeing on the market?
I think I'm curious about that too. When the landlord loses a tenant and they find a new tenant to replace the one they lost, is that new tenant then having the rent pumped 10-15% over what the old one was? And is that how we're getting to a point of a lack of affordability even more? Because as the viewer who chimed in earlier in the week said, the renewals are not being reported in this rent increase. The ones that are staying in place and having their rent uptick 4% each year, 5% each year,
or even
as
less,
per their lease, that's not getting reported into this 15% number or the year-over-year decrease. So to Judah's point, for us to get to that number and not include those means it's significant increases are still happening. That's your point, right?
Yeah, but I think if you take out the lower numbers, then the higher numbers in the average come down. That was my thought based on yesterday's comment, but I honestly don't know how they get the numbers. So.
What do you think about this, Scott? And we'll welcome Crystal Lawhorn to the program, and we'll get to the questions that are coming in on rent. But first, your take on this.
I mean, I think what most people face as far as a rental expense and what they have to do in order to qualify for some of these is part of what prevents people from qualifying to purchase to begin with. And I've long said that,
First month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit. I mean, we're basically getting to the point of a down payment on a house.
100%.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and then they they're paying close to, if not more, depending on individual situations, a mortgage payment in rent that it's hard for them to ever accrue enough money saved in order to make the down payment. Unless there's plenty of people who go in and they room share. They do they put themselves in a position to do that, but it's a more challenging way of living than most people in the United States of America are willing to commit themselves to.
And you and I have a back and forth on that about the house hacks. Now, granted, I was at a different time of my life than you are now.
About the house what?
About the house hacks and the room share and rent one of the rooms out. I mean, one of the ways I was able to do it in the mid-20s, and granted that's a different time than where we're all at now, was taking a 3-bedroom house that I owned and taking 2 of the bedrooms and renting them out. And those 2 of the bedrooms, when you do that for 5 or 7 years, that rent adds up. And then you're able to accumulate the equity and or the cash on hand to keep buying up or investing or getting another house. But to your point, and this is a good conversation for the 3 of us here, to your point, you don't feel necessarily that's, how did you characterize it? That's fair, or that's should be a necessity for people to live in this market? That's how you described it?
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair assessment. I mean, that to some extent, I'm not talking about somebody being angry that they're working 30 hours a week and can't afford a 3-bedroom house. I mean, that's obviously absurd. But somebody who's working a full-time job and can barely afford a 1-bedroom you're starting to get at the point where how are, we talk about this. We talk about food and beverage, people working all around us. Not everybody is working,
The service industry that supports what even service people go out and use and do, that their housing expense or their life expense is so great. But they shouldn't, yes, I agree that the cost of a 1-bedroom in Charlottesville is typically a little outrageous.
Yeah, about $1,400
Yeah.
for a one bedroom in the Charlottesville urban ring. All right, well, it gets down to this question, and
Who
then
can afford that?
well, I mean, hey,
That's $1,400.
$1,400 for a one bedroom. I mean,
That's
my response to
insane.
that is, and this is something that irritates him. Viewers and listeners are responding to this. Is this now a two job? You have to work two job or 1.5 jobs to stay in the market. I mean, that was quite common for Manhattan. Quite common for Northern Virginia. A lot of people turned off by that statement. He's very turned off by that statement.
Yeah.
Some folks are like, hey, that's what you got to do.
But do you? But do you? I don't know.
A lot of folks are doing that.
Yeah, I understand that, but I think so. That's where I think you eventually, at some point, there is a breaking point for the ceilings for these rents, and as more and more units are produced, which I think is part of what you're seeing for the new start 2% decrease, at a certain level, the further people have to move out, let's say they say, okay, well, yeah, sure, that's what I got to do here in Charlottesville, but in Richmond I don't have to do that, and that's an hour away. So off the car I go, and they move the entire lifestyle out there. The more you see of that, I think there is a tipping point, and I think we're probably pretty close to it.
We're very, very close. That's why it comes up often on the show. Jason Howard, we'll get to your comment here about rents and the apartments by Trader Joe's here in a matter of moments. Your take on what he said?
Yeah. At what point do you start running off your service industry? And
I think we're at that point. Yeah.
When restaurants don't open because they don't have enough people,
you're at that point.
You're there.
Waffle House closing because of it. Bodo's on the corners not opening. Multiple restaurants closing because of the labor.
Right. So is the argument then that all those people should just get more jobs? Like, are you saying that if everybody in the service industry just got another job, then they could be able to afford to continue living in Charlottesville and we would all be happy?
No, I just asked the question, is the market now, if you're working, for example, in the service industry, in the events industry, in the music industry, traditionally not upper paying jobs, is this now a market where you have to have a job and a half to stay in the market and live?
Right.
And I would say from the data suggests that's the case.
Right.
The data suggests that's what's happening. Jason Howard just shared this to Scott's point and to your point. There are apartments by Trader Joe's. This is the Stonefield Apartments that are $1,800 a month for a 719 square foot one bedroom.
That whole area to me is just like a hot mess. Like they can't keep retail in the Stonefield Shopping Center, and and assuming that there's somebody who thinks it's a cool, like, is that a cool, like, am I not cool enough to think that's cool? Like I wouldn't want to live there.
I'd rather live downtown or Midtown.
100%.
When we were that age.
Yeah.
And we'd want to go to obviously the appeal is walking to and from bars and nightlife.
Okay.
And amenities.
Yeah.
Stonefield has some of that. The ones I would probably want to be around would be downtown.
Not a whole lot of bars.
What's that?
Not a whole lot of bars. Especially with the implosion of, who.
1,800 people are paying it. $1,800 a month for a one bedroom.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I can't. I'm assuming that's filled with people from NGIC, DIA, maybe Northrop, since they're right there. You could essentially walk to work. Someone who's accepting that place of living and that area looks cool to them because they came from Northern Virginia, or they've just never, and they've got no introduction into Charlottesville whatsoever, I guess. And I'm not, if you're out there and you live there and you're like, it is cool, I'm like, all right, cool, high five, bro. But that's just not how I would like, if I were a single person living in this area, where I would picture myself being.
$1,800 for a one bedroom is astronomical.
Yeah.
Especially if that's less than 800 square feet, one bedroom. Now, to their point, they're new construction and in walking distance within a lot of cool things to do potentially, and that's why they're running them at that price point. Is it now, and viewers and listeners will ask you that question, for certain segments of the workforce, is this now a job and a half community? And if you're working a job and a half community, how do you get ahead in that scenario? And then the response to that would be, as people are putting on the feed, you just do what you got to do to get it done. And your point to that is you don't buy that. He doesn't buy that argument. Do what you got to do to get it done.
At some point, yes. Like I said, if you're working 30 or 40 hours a week and expecting to get a 3 or 4 bedroom house, it's just, yes, you're going to need to get another job, but at some point, if you can't afford a one, and I'm not talking about $1,800 a month 1 bedroom, I'm talking about
Turtle Creek 1 bedroom.
yeah, if you can't afford the basic living expenses, then
But this goes back to from just a labor perspective. We're talking about the answer can't just be go get another job you can't get service industry businesses to keep enough labor on staff in order to actually open. To the point of the Bodos and the IHOP and all of these places, that's just not a reasonable answer either. But then in turn, and here's the rub: if paying more is the solution, that is what creates wage inflation, which in turn is what allows landlords to increase rents. So it doesn't stop. There's a reason that we see the things happen in the order that we see them happen.
Or is the labor shortage situation, and then I didn't mean to cut you off, is the labor shortage situation a byproduct of having too much food and beverage business in the area? So because there's too much food and beverage business in the area, the labor stretched too thin over too many food and beverage businesses.
Well, that goes back to something we were talking about prior to the show as well.
What's that?
The number of, people who are saying, hey, maybe I'd like to sell this business.
Yeah, so maybe this collapse that Powell wants, which is causing people to close businesses, will consolidate labor. And if labor is consolidated to certain businesses, then the short staffing of that labor doesn't happen. And then that labor is able to potentially command higher dollars to live in the area.
Offhand, like what, because there used to be a number that floated around, like our per capita restaurant number.
I've heard it's anywhere from 14 in the nation to 8 in the nation, the Charlottesville market restaurants per capita. And it depends on where you get your statistics and your information.
And now with food trucks, that number's probably even bigger.
You could probably quantify it safely that Charlottesville market is top conservatively 20 in the country with restaurants per capita.
Yep.
You did a little research there. What'd you find when you looked it up?
I'm looking.
Todd Rath, Blue Toad Hard Cider. We've dubbed him the king of cider. He says, Jerry, Scott, and Judah, I'm not sure why this is a question in our community. I look back at what my parents and many others did in their years up until their early 50s. Multiple jobs, multiple businesses. If you choose to live in downtown or high-end Charlottesville, then you may need another job. Look at places like Jackson, Wyoming, and what's going on there and what folks do to live and work. Market demands, the market will shake itself out eventually. And I understand his point. He goes, if you want to live here,
the timeline's long enough, it's all transitory.
If you want to live here, you got to work multiple jobs to do it. I mean, my wife can tell you when she was living in Manhattan and had a great job in finance, she was working 60, 70 hours a week in Manhattan and had 3 roommates, and one of them was living in a fake wall room of an apartment where they took the living room and they put up a fake wall. They do this often in Manhattan to help share the costs of rent. And that's her making 6 figures. So she would say, you do what you got to do if you want to live in the area. You're just not necessarily buying that, and that's why this is a good discussion and why the viewers and listeners are responding. A lot of people are saying that if you want to live in Charlottesville, you shouldn't have to work a job and a half or 2 jobs to be able to live in here. Times be a-changing, it appears, and because it's a coveted place to live, we're getting a lot of folks from outside the area that are driving up the cost of living. That's just what's happening here. Anyone want to add to that? You would. I see the wheels turning over there. You're much more empathetic than I am when it comes to this.
Yeah, he's got a good point. I mean, yes, you're not going to, like I said, and I've been trying to make this point that, yeah, you can't expect to get a house. Or you can't expect to get a house for the price of a 1-bedroom apartment. At some point, you are going to have to work for what you want. But I'm really talking about the basics. Not not renting a house, 2 blocks off the downtown mall, but if there aren't places where people can afford to live, I don't care what you think about how hard people should be working, you're going to start having problems.
People are talking about quality of life. The only thing you'll be doing is working and sleeping and nothing else.
Yeah.
That's comment is coming on the
Some
feed.
people don't mind that. Some people are just on, 24/7, 18 hours a day, ready to work and go, and
Thank you, Judah.
I'm of that mindset. That's a description of me right there. Sounds like that's Scott Morris right there. That's Scotty Moe. I mean, Keith Smith would probably say that's him as well. But I understand that's not everyone.
Yeah, and I'm just going back to what you were saying. Some people.
I like to have fun too. Most of that is work or
Yeah.
talking about work, but that sounds great.
A lot of my fun is work as well. It just happens to be I very much enjoy what I do. But I get your point. I see what your point that you're saying here. This question's coming in from Spencer, who watches the show. He goes, "This is undoubtedly a market if you want to get ahead, where you're going to have to work a job and a half or even 2 jobs. The folks that are working a job and a half or 2 jobs are the ones that are certainly going to be able to buy the houses and then utilize that equity to continue climbing. It just is what it is what he says. It's a great conversation for a talk show. It's a great conversation for a talk show. Liz Nottingham, welcome to the show. I think it's going to get more expensive and it's not going to get more affordable. Are we in agreement there, or you disagree?
I think we're at over time. That's how the world works. But I also believe that we are at a tipping point with what we see as far as probably rents for a little while. We should see some plateau, at least through part of next year on housing, resale increases. The service industry that is in our area, again, if you can't keep bodies in the business to keep the business open, you can't just tell people, you can't just split your existing workforce into, you can't clone them. There's going to be some give and take. There will be some small business loss in the next 12 to 24 months, some reconsolidation, if you would, some market capture, some of that, something's going to go one way or somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. That's the world we live in.
That's why maybe we're seeing, ladies and gentlemen, the sales of a lot of businesses and the closings of some of the businesses which we've discussed. This question's come on the feed, or this comment from Todd. We need more apartments in neighboring counties, but a lot of counties don't want them. Nelson County, for example, does not want any apartments in its county that would be able to help cater.
I was shocked to hear Fluvanna has an apartment building going up.
Cater. I mean, here's the challenge. If other counties don't want the apartments, and the apartments in Charlottesville and the rentals in the Charlottesville Albemarle urban ring are so expensive, but the counties right on the other side of the urban ring don't want this kind of housing, how's the problem solved?
That's where I think your attrition goes to.
That's where you're saying the Richmond market.
Yeah.
And then when it goes to the Richmond market, what happens? What happens to this type of work? And then if this type of work disappears because the labor's not there, how do the folks that can't afford to live in this market, where are they going to get this type of service amenities from?
Well,
Does it just become big box brands? Is that
I think maybe that's part of it. I think also you get a concentration of businesses. The businesses that wow their customers the most are going to get the most business, and there's probably some cross. I don't know the word. The businesses that treat their employees the best are going to have the best time retaining employees, and
big box
the Venn
brands
diagram of those two are going to be the businesses that really thrive here.
I think big box brands you'll see more in the outskirts and surrounding areas than inside Charlottesville. But I think there's winners and losers, and I think we're at a moment in time, and that will change again throughout as things go forward. But we're at a moment where you're going to see some of these. The number of small business service industry places, no matter what it is, some are going to come off the board. There's going to be winners and losers, and as that happens, there'll be places for people to be. Some of them will increase their wages, and some of them will go elsewhere. Or I talked to somebody yesterday who's talking about the number of he owns a bunch of vape stores up and down the East Coast, and some of them do better in other areas than not, and talking about where he wants to place his housing in relation to how successful his vape stores are up and down the East Coast.
Well, there's probably something to do with the success of those vape stores with the level of wealth in the community where those stores are located within.
Yes.
Often how you see like the tobacco outlets or the lottery performing outlets, they're generally performing better and lower income communities.
And same thing goes for when you look at if you go to West Virginia, like you don't see the number of restaurants that you do in small towns out here. You see IHOPs and Hardee's, and that's it. That's all you see. Whereas Charlottesville is such a service-based. We've got so many and we're starting to see some pullback and some losses and some closures in some of these places, especially the ones that weren't run very well. I think it's just the ebbs and flows of the market, and that's what we're seeing at the moment.
Meredith Young, we're going to get to her comment. She's a realtor watching the show. She says, very interesting conversation, guys. I agree that if you have specific financial goals, for example, buying property in Charlottesville, putting your head down and working extra jobs for a season is commendable and not out of the ordinary. So a lot of folks are straight up saying, look, if you want to live in Charlottesville and you're just kind of breaking out and you want to climb the professional ladder, you're going to have to work a job and a half, if not 2 jobs. A lot of people are agreeing to that. This is from Anonymous, the I Love CVille Network's version of Deep Throat. For Scott in Judah, he says, I went to, is it Iso Ramen? That's the place on West Main Street, where Pizza Hut used to be, I believe is where that's located. He said, I went to Iso Ramen, and a robot delivered my order to my table. Wow. And he says, the robot does not need an apartment.
There is the Pinto Thai in Culpeper has a robot delivery that comes through the kitchen doors and shows up at your table.
Todd, I'll get to your comment, and Travis, I'll get to your comments here. Comments are coming in fast and furious. What we're talking about here is resonating with people. Jason, I'll get to your comments here. Our oldest son loves the sausage biscuit from McDonald's, and one of the things we do on the weekends is I'll get him sausage biscuit meal with a hash brown and an orange juice for him. And the McDonald's on Pantops over there by Dardental Park, the line at the drive-thru was extremely long, and we had a place we needed to go. So we went in to do the order.
I'm an inside guy. I go inside everywhere.
If I went inside and there was literally no one working the register, they said if you want to place an order, you can use this kiosk. Only the kiosk. There was no one at the cash register, and they only had one person running the food from the kitchen to pickup window that they've done away completely from the register worker. So you could order food at this McDonald's through the drive-through only or a robot kiosk on the inside, and that's the only thing you can do. So the big box brands are obviously trying to combat the labor shortage through automation. And what we may end up seeing in this market is the food service industry just get potentially at least a portion of cannibalized from automation.
And what a ton of those places want, Chipotle, so many of them want you ordering through the app before they don't, just please put your shit on here and come pick it up and don't talk to us.
To the point where you get discounted.
Yeah.
If you order through the app. So that's another way they're trying to combat this. Jason Howard, I was parking cars last night for the UVA game with the Knights of Columbus over on Ivy Road by Truist and Moe's. I tried to go to Moe's for dinner just after 8 p.m. They were closed. The labor shortage is real. If you have to close at 8 on a game night, that certainly says something.
Yeah.
I know the owner of that business well, and he's looking to solve that problem. Jason, Travis is watching in Danville. He says, great point, Scott. Many large manufacturers looking to build new plants want housing options on site or nearby. Now, not allowing housing option kills any opportunity for economic development that benefits the entire community.
When you look at seasonal vacation areas, they are plagued, and with the fact, especially over the years, so much of that housing for workers has been cannibalized by Airbnbs and investment properties that there's no place to support the work staff. Hilton Head, North Carolina, Virginia Beach sees some of it, but there's enough city infrastructure there that they pick up a good deal. Hatteras Island, North Carolina, is really struggles, and the whatever that type of visa is where they traditionally were be able to bring in largely an Eastern European workforce seasonally, struggled through COVID to where they're trying to just get those turned around again to where they can channel people back into those areas, but they still have a difficult time providing them housing.
What do you think about this, Judah?
Yeah.
This is resonating with the people here.
See that every time we go to the Outer Banks, the local grocery store is staffed usually by Eastern European, immigrants.
The Wings, all of those places.
Yeah, and at the same time, I used to wash windows in Hilton Head, and man, I cannot imagine being working a restaurant or something there. And
The Dollar General in Rodanthe used to pay something like $250 per diem and gas to get people to drive in from like Elizabeth City.
Wow. James McNamara is watching the program. Is that Jake's brother?
That is Jake's brother.
James, what up? Welcome to the program. Your bro did a hell of a job on the show. Okay, how about this question? This is a tough question. How about this, Jerry, for the panel from Kelsey? Is it a sign of economic health for a community that folks may have to work a job and a half or 2 jobs to live within the community? It's an interesting question right there.
So, when we talk about your police, fire, emergency services, teachers largely having to live out of the area in order to, be able to afford, and these are, professionals, people who, some of which teachers go, 6 figures into debt in order to take on that position, and they can't live in the market that they work in. So it depends on what we're describing as healthy. Does that mean that there's other sources of business that are providing large amounts of money? The university, the Alphabets, the Injects, the DIAs,
Tech, STEM, apps. That's her point.
Yeah. So I think it's probably a little bit of both.
That's her point there.
Yeah, it's a good question.
She's basically saying we have such high dollar jobs. Is that a positive for the economy and economic development, or is it an indication that middle class and under can't afford to live here?
Yeah,
making it not a healthy economy.
Right. It's definitely understandable when somebody working at McDonald's can't afford a 3-bedroom on a single salary, but what's the lowest level? Like, at what point do you say, okay, we're in trouble?
Well, right now we're at teachers, nurses, police officers, and firefighters, which is concerning.
Yeah. So if people in those jobs can't afford to live there, maybe it's time to I don't know, figure out what the problem is and fix it.
I don't know why this makes me. There's like a meme that floats around, and it's like a picture of the Married with Children house, and it's like a shoe salesman used to be able to afford this.
Ed Bundy. Peg Bundy was a stay-at-home mom, wasn't she?
That's right.
She was a stay-at-home mom. And how about Christina Applegate? Sorry, that was younger Jerry talking right there. All right, Paul McCarter has this comment that's come in. He's a realtor. And Paul says, and Jason, I'll get to yours again. He says, I used to hate self-checkout and kiosks at places, but now I love them. The self-checkouts that have started being popular at gas stations, Sheetz, for example, are really fast. The kiosks at McDonald's and Taco Bell are really easy, and my order hasn't been wrong since using them. It certainly takes out some human error out of the equation. This has come in from King of Rio. I'm not complaining about it. I'm sympathetic that they have to turn away business because it's so hard to staff, and that was in relation to Moe's being closed on game day. And I appreciate that comment, Jason. I know you're not complaining about it. And I know he is also working to fix that staffing issue, as are a lot of people looking to fix the staffing issue. This is coming from Grayson. Maybe the expectation is that the food and beverage business is not only oversaturated, but will be completely revamped in the next 5 or 10 years. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, 100%.
To some extent, and I appreciate the fact that there are robots bringing you your food, but what happens when you find a fly in your soup? The robot's not going to.
Well, we're already establishing the fact that we don't have enough people to support the service industry in Charlottesville as it exists, with businesses not being able to stay open due to that labor shortage. So the replacement of some of those humans with a meal delivery robot isn't out of the question. Right. And then up and down the East Coast, you can't find people to staff in McDonald's. There's signs in the window, or not in the window, but on their letterboard stating, we'll give you an iPhone and a signing bonus to come work here at $16 an hour. These are no longer jobs that are being staffed by teenagers. There's a number of adults. I'm starting to see more and more of different age groups filling those positions, and at a certain level, the more that you pay, the wage increase, the wage inflation that follows is going to stick to rents. So. Anyways, one begets the other.
One of the tough aspects about this for me is the big box brand inherently has a market advantage when it comes to innovation. So, for example, we're seeing another Wawa coming. This Wawa is going to be coming on the corner of Greenbrier and Route 29. So if viewers and listeners, you've probably noticed this, but Wawas are starting to become everywhere in this area. Your Wawa's coming to 5th Street Extended and the old Hardee's location, Wawa on Pantops, Wawa, a new one coming at Greenbrier.
Make a meat sandwich.
The Wawa's literally coming everywhere. Look at the advantage the Wawa has. Is the Wawa the MTO, or is that Sheetz? The made-to-order sandwich.
Both, I think.
Now they both have the kiosks? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not seeing those advantages for the local business that's got like the digital advantages.
Sunshine gas station.
Yeah, right. We're not seeing it for the mom and pops.
Well, I mean, so I think we've seen that in phases as well. Charlottesville is a market where we might see, was it the markets?
Tiger Fuel.
Yeah, we may continue to see, we're in a place where you'll probably see your small independent, somebody who can put together that business model for a higher end boutique place out near Ivy or in different pockets that will continue to succeed. But that whole business model has been basically a version of this over time either way.
And you and I both love the delicious and delectable French bread sandwiches from the markets of Tiger Fuel.
I do,
okay?
yeah.
We will say that the markets and the Sutton family are while a locally owned business, they have vertical integration and tremendous economy of scale here for, say, a 1-unit or 2-unit mom and pop owner
who's doing like good fried chicken at like Brown's and Crozet, something like that.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm worried about. And
now I'm shocked that actually something hasn't gone and put a footprint out there and stepped on them. But
and Crozet or Brown's?
Crozet.
Crozet. You're talking about the gas station right there by Western Albemarle High School.
Yeah. Isn't that Brown's?
Yeah, Brown's is Avon Extended, right?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, Brown's is the Mr. and Mrs. Brown were Avon Extended.
Gotcha.
And they sold their business to a new family that's running it. Comments are coming in fast. This is from Anonymous on a Twitter direct message. Police, fire, and teacher wages are set by policy and not market. We need to boost those wages if private sector wages rise sharply so they can compete. I agree with that. And he also says, Scott has a very interesting point about young people not filling jobs. I spent time out in a small city out west that is a university town. When the kids went home due to COVID suddenly, there was a huge labor shortage. It made me realize that student housing is actually a form of workforce housing in these university towns. I wonder if UVA students come from wealthier and wealthier backgrounds and fewer of them work part-time jobs. I think that's 100% true.
Yeah.
The cost of going to college now is so damn expensive that the students that are going to these colleges now are much less middle and lower class students. They're certainly upper class students. And as this student population, take UVA for example, comes from very wealthy families, they don't have to work during college. I personally had to work during college, was a fraternity, Phi Kappa Psi, and while I was working at Ruby Tuesdays in Barracks Road as a bartender and hooking my homies up with some drinks from the bar, one of the things I noticed about them is that they were all coming in the middle of the afternoon, having beers with mommy and daddy's credit card and not needing to work whatsoever. And I can imagine that phenomenon has only gotten greater.
One of the things that I will say at least supports the area towards those who may want to get a degree from UVA is what PVCC does for their 2-year transition program, completing an associate's there and then the ability to move into UVA or JMU pretty seamlessly at a much more affordable cost, because then they're getting 2 less years of that cost, and it doesn't matter where they spent the first 2, because the stamp on that, the image on that degree is all that's going to matter at the end of the day.
Alex Erpy, Nicholas Erpy, and Michael Erpy are perfect examples of that. 2 years at Piedmont. They did extremely well at Piedmont, and they all transferred to the University of Virginia. And their degree, anyone asks, University of Virginia degree, the 2 years that they got. And I think Alex McIntyre School of Commerce. So that's an example of what he's saying. Paul of Avenue Realty says, Jerry, Judah, and Scott, it's hard for high schoolers to work after school since high school gets out so late. In many places, high schoolers are a big chunk of the evening labor force. This is also a bad thing for some students and even families that would benefit from that extra income. So he's highlighting the difficulties of high schoolers.
Also, as we inch towards a year-round school year as well, it becomes more and more challenging.
You see that happening?
I mean, doesn't it happen, get a little bit closer every year?
Yeah, it's certainly
Seems
getting.
to.
It's certainly getting closer over here every year. This comment's come in. Oh, they're coming in fast now. The local mom and pop, we have thoughts of opening up a deli, but we just cannot figure out the business model without my husband and I working every single hour of the shift. Relying on labor right now seems to be a crippling aspect of opening any food and beverage business.
Shockingly similar to another conversation we
Jewish
had
deli?
prior to the show.
Yeah. A Jewish deli would crush it, but how are you going to staff it?
Right.
How are you going to staff it? Yeah, that's exactly right. If you want to do a food and beverage business, and it could be you and your wife working pretty much every shift,
Eating your own food.
then you could probably make some money. But your quality of life may be a little different. And I'll leave it at that. And maybe that's what you have to do. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what it is.
And on a certain level, I mean, there's a grind that you got to put in for a couple, what does the timeline look like, and how successful do you want your business to be?
Right. And Kevin Yancey says, fellas, it's the Brownsville Market in Crozet.
Thank you. I knew
Brownsville Market, the fried chicken spot. You were right. The one by Western Albemarle High School. That does have fantastic fried chicken. This is from Danville. A large part of that probably is due to the rate of promotion within the sector. It widely varies, and in most cases in the U.S., your cheaper brands don't offer much in the way of moving up the ladder. So that's the point of the big box brands trying to be able to get labor, that they don't offer a lot of vertical potential.
That's an issue with a lot of what Amazon has done around cities. I mean, they've shopped around, pretending they're gonna grace some city with their commerce, and they get the cities to fork over like all their secrets, and then they build something in an economic opportunity zone, and basically shave most of the money that they would have been giving the city or the area off of their taxes. And like you said, the jobs that they're offering are not like stepping stones to better jobs. They're just like,
Well, Amazon's
pack
largely
response.
like the new coal industry when it comes to like keeping that money in house.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You start to wonder if the Amazon distribution centers, while they create jobs in the grand scheme of things, are they actually good for the economy that they're going within?
Yeah.
And you can make some strong arguments that they are not.
They're good for Amazon.
They're good for Amazon.
Yeah.
They're good for Amazon. They're seduced to jurisdictions with tax breaks associated with making the development of those distribution centers way more affordable, and then the jobs that are created are maybe not necessarily delivering the ROI that the jurisdiction thought, and then the tax breaks hurts the revenue that comes from the real estate and the development. That's what you're saying. This was a good topic, and I see that this is something that hits close to home. Anything else either of you want to add on this topic before we let it go? I felt like we covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
What are you watching between now and the end of the year?
My kids get me sick over and over.
It's that time of year.
You know, just business planning for 2023. You know, create intentional actions, take those actions, support the people that support you. Again, if you are an individual out there who's wanting to buy and you don't feel like you're being given all your options, call me. If you're a professional, if you're an agent out there who's got clients and you see a ton of conventional pre-approvals, are all the people that you're sending, the places that you're sending them, getting them all the options that they truly deserve? If not, again, call me, shoot me a text. That's what we're here for. We want to put everyone at the best position to succeed.
Scott Morris, guys, Ross Mortgage, he crushed it today. Looked at the time for the first time right now in 11:36. He made our job easy. Ross Mortgage and Scott Morris, if you're realtors and you're looking to move property, give him a ring. And if you're looking for a refinance opportunity or thinking about it, give him a ring. And buyers and sellers, this is the guy that can help you get through the closing table and beyond. Scott Morris and Ross Mortgage. I thought you did great today, Judah.
Thank you, Judah.
I love when
the
you
man
chime
behind
in
the
on
curtain.
show. I know. I love when he chimes in. He's got a lot to say. We just get those wheels turning, and the show benefits from what he has to say. I'm Jerry Miller, and the I Love CVille show is up in approximately 50 minutes today on a Wednesday. Take care, everyone. Scott, well done. That topic was good. Very nice job.
Awesome.